Faces at the top, the human steak. Start in a kitchen that smells faintly like bleach. A mom twists the tap, watches it sputter, then run clear but cloudy at the edges. It's July bloom season and she's back to the routine. Fill the pot, set the kettle, boil first, then cool. The text alert dinged at 6 a.m. Precautionary advisory after last night's storm. She adds bottled water to the list again. Out front, a delivery truck stacks shrink-wrapped cases from a brand pumped 2 counties away, legally under 5.7-gallon containers, drawn from the same watershed she's paying to trust. Down at the harbor, a charter captain checks wind and algae maps before he checks his lures. Spring browns turned into maybes years ago. Now summer means deeper runs, extra fuel, and a second intake strainer because quagga mussels and mats can choke a day fast. Clients still smile at the water, clearer than they remember. He knows that trick. Clear doesn't mean full. On the radio, another boat cancels a trip after a marina pump clogs. He scribbles a new plan on the whiteboard and pretends it's normal. At the treatment plant, the night shift feels like triage. A cloudburst pushed turbidity up, and operators dosed powdered carbon to tame taste and odor. Ozone's online. A supervisor reads microcystin numbers out loud and marks the chart for a council packet that will carry a price tag. Overtime is already baked in. The lab techs line bottles under fluorescence. Nobody in that room says excess water. They say residuals, breakage, backwash, and trust. Trust wears thin where kids fill cups. In a lakeshore school, a drinking fountain has yellow tape. A cooler sits by the gym, stacked with paper cones. The city's map shows green dots for lead lines replaced, yellow for scheduled, gray for unknown. Parents ask why their block stayed gray. The answer lives in bonds and backlogs. A teacher folds up a flyer about boil orders and draws a lesson on watersheds anyway. Tribal nations put it in law and memory. Consent isn't a courtesy, it's a right. A fisheries biologist launches at dawn, checks gill nets, and reads the story in smaller whitefish and missing cohorts. In the meeting hall, leaders draft language that sounds like a courtroom because it is co-management, treaty resources, return flow triggers that bite in August. We fish here because our grandmothers did, a chair says. You don't measure public purpose without us. Households carry the quietest math. Rate hikes fund ozone, carbon, and lead swaps. Shut-off notices still arrive. A grandmother on a fixed income keeps payment plans folded under a magnet on the fridge. The warehouse park that broke ground last month brags about a fire loop as big as a neighborhood. She asks the help desk volunteer why her bill jumped. The answer mentions peak demand and leak loss. She nods and reaches for the kettle again. At a port upriver, a scheduler stares at a dredge calendar that never quite matches the water. Low years shaved payloads, high years broke fenders. Each swing costs days and dollars. A paper mill logs a thermal variance request for July's hottest week to avoid a fish kill. The permit is public, the panic is. Microstories tie it together. A municipal operator refreshes a dashboard at 3 a.m. and sees intake temperature creep toward the August trigger line. He texts the industrial liaison, shift the data center to reclaimed now. A minute later, a purple pipe valve turns. The plant holds margin, no headline, just meters.